I had been waiting all of the pandemic for beer league hockey to start back up. I hadn't played at all. I was pretty scared about it. And even though there was a shutdown, some people were playing, and I know some of you joining us today were some of those playing as well. And some of you were longing for it. But right at the start of the rolling out of the vaccination, that's when everyone was starting to feel comfortable again. And I started playing. And it was probably the second or third game. I took the most gnarly cross-check from behind. I didn't retaliate. I was hanging out in front of the goal. The linesman didn't whistle a penalty. The whistle blew, and I changed lines. I was flustered on the bench, and I was livid for the rest of the game. After the game, the ref skated over to me, and he said, "I know you were angry, but the guy that hit you, it didn't seem like he hit you intentionally. He's just not a strong skater, and more or less ended up using you to stop." Now, although this didn't make my soreness any better, my outlook changed completely. I heard so many things in the ref's words. I heard him say, "You know, you're a better skater than that guy." I heard him say, "I, the ref, let it go because I was feeling for his skills." I heard him say, "It wasn't his fault." I heard him say, "You had the right to be angry, but let me give you the full picture of what you couldn't see." And I heard him say, "It was good you didn't retaliate because you would have had the penalty and not him." That night, perhaps because I was sore, I wrestled with this otherwise seemingly minor, insignificant moment. Granted, it was pretty close to the start of the month of Elul, and I'm probably the only rabbi in the league. But I couldn't help reflecting on how much in my life do I get angry about or frustrated about, and it ends up being completely misguided because I don't have the full picture. About 2,000 years ago, there was a Rabbi, Yehoshua ben Prachia. He was part of a period of rabbinic history referred to as the Age of the Zugot, where you had these partners of rabbis. You know about Hillel and Shammai, perhaps most famously. They were the end of this period. And in Pirkei Avot, Yehoshua ben Prachia is recorded as this famous aphorism, Heve dan et kol adam l'chaf. Judge all with the scale weighted in their favor. Or better put, give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Rashi, in his commentary on this teaching, says, on everything that you hear about a person, you should believe that they intended it for good until you know with absolute certainty it is not the case. So I'll share with you a story. I have a colleague who shared with me in probably my first or second year here at Bethel about different rabbinic practices you don't learn in rabbinical school. And one of them was a personal story of his. There was a woman whose husband died while she was out of town. They had no children and no local relatives. So when she came back immediately, she felt completely uncomfortable going to the house where he died or going really anywhere, so she stayed at the hotel. And my colleague a mensch he is, offered to meet her in the hotel lobby to prepare for the funeral and to help counsel and all of this. Now, my colleague who told me this story is not the most physically active of human specimen. And so he decided it would be easier because his car was parked relatively close to the back of the hotel, just to go out the hallway instead of the front entrance. And as fate would have it, a congregant was driving by the hotel that day and decided the rabbi is having an affair with a congregant. Within about 2 months, that was the conversation at board meetings. But for his stalwart attitude, he was about to be let go from the position. He shared me this story because he said one of the biggest dangers in the Jewish community is we don't give people the benefit of the doubt. My father taught me, and I remember this very clearly, driving out of Manhattan when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I saw a man panhandling on the side, and my dad rolled down the window and gave him some tzedakah. And I remember saying to my dad, how do you know what he's going to spend it on? How could you possibly know he's not going to spend it on drugs or alcohol or something that isn't for a good cause? And my father taught me as a young boy, if someone is bringing themselves out to the point of begging, there is no doubt they need it. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, granted, we might say we'll buy them a meal instead, whatever it might be. But think about other examples. The person who doesn't respond to your email right away, or perhaps responds in a way that you could take to mean that they're ignoring you or don't care. Or the person who's not yet vaccinated because of a health condition, or because they haven't been able to afford to take off work to do so, or to pay for a babysitter to watch their children. Or perhaps there's something your partner did or did not do that you asked them repeatedly to do so. I find it fascinating that it was Yehoshua ben Prachia that offered this teaching about giving the benefit of the doubt. Because I was reflecting on this teaching this summer, as I mentioned, and I decided to look into Yehoshua ben Prachia a little bit more, because even though we know his name and he's in Pirkei Avot, you really don't study him otherwise. And wouldn't you know, throughout history, our Talmud has been censored. Now, of course, you would understand it's censored. Now, I don't mean censored for profanity and expletives, but I mean censored by the church with references that they believed during periods of inquisition and expulsion were anti-Christian sentiment. And there's a section of the Talmud that is censored as a story about Yehoshua ben Prachia. Now, how do we still have this today? And this is a divine miracle if I ever saw one. The ink that they used to print the Talmud still stayed dark, but the ink that the censor used to block out the sections of the Talmud, those have since faded. Yehoshua ben Prachia was the Nasi of the Sanhedrin in the latter half of the 2nd century. And one of his most famous students was none other than Jesus. Recorded in the Talmud, but censored. So throughout hundreds of years, we lost it to history. We learn that the evil king Jannaeus would put the rabbis to death left and right. This is something we reflect on during the martyrology on the High Holy Days. Yehoshua ben Prachia fled to Alexandria in Egypt for fear of his life. And when there was final peace, Yehoshua ben Prachia came back and found himself in a certain inn where they paid him great respect. Those of you familiar with Christian religious literature, you understand the imagery of being found in an inn. He said, "How beautiful is this hostess of the inn?" He paid her a compliment, specifically of her looks. Yeshu, Jesus, said to him, "My master, her eyes are so narrow." Yoshua replied, "What? You wicked person! How could you say such a thing about this woman who's giving us hospitality?" So Yoshua ben Prachia excommunicated him. Jesus came back to Yoshua ben Prachia on many occasions, saying, "Please receive me," but Yoshua ben Prachia refused to notice. One day, when Yoshua ben Prachia was reciting the Shema, Yeshu, Jesus, came before him. And Yoshua ben Prachia, his intention was to make peace. And he's sitting to recite the Shema. He goes like this. And Jesus understood that as him going like this. And so his disciple thought he was repelling him. And he went, and according to this sugya on the Talmud, he set up a brick and worshipped it. It's probably why the censors censored this section of the Talmud. Yoshua ben Prachia said to him, "Repent." But Jesus answered, "Thus have I received from you that whoever sins and cause others to sin is deprived of the power and the opportunity for penitence." A later rabbi added, "The disciple practiced magic and led Israel astray." I was blown away when I came across the sugya, because of course we didn't study this in rabbinical school. And by all means, this is not a, we should all leave now and go to Benilde across the street and become Christian. But what I do see here is perhaps where I could ask the question, could it be that Christianity began because one of our rabbinic sages did not give his student the benefit of the doubt? Could it be that we ended up on such vastly different theological tracks because of Yoshua ben Prachia alone? And then I thought about it. What if his teaching came after this incident? That his teaching of Hevei et kol adam l'chaf, give everyone the benefit of the doubt, was his tikkun of rejecting his chief talmid. It was his way of doing tshuva for dismissing his student. If we are a collective people with a collective heart and a collective conscience, then giving people the benefit of the doubt is not simply doing what's right. It's mending how we have wronged others. It's mending how previous generations have wronged others. It's figuring out all those times we've closed the door and taking a step forward to open them. Because on the high holy days, we pray to God as judge. We ask that God give us the benefit of the doubt. When we recite Avinu Malkeinu, we say, we remember, please God, remember that we are but dust, ki afar anachnu. Remember us favorably. We scream out to have compassion for us. But come on, why should God give us the benefit of the doubt? The rabbis teach that we do just as God does. God clothes Adam and Eve, so we're taught to clothe the naked. God visits Abraham after he circumcised himself and he's sitting in the terebinths of Mamre in the heat of the day, so we're taught to do Bikor Cholim, to visit the sick. God buries Moses, so we're taught to bury the dead. But in my mind, and perhaps it's irreverent, and you've heard me teach it before, our relationship with God is symbiotic. That is, we do because God did, but also God does because we do. Which means God will not possibly give us the benefit of the doubt if we do not do the same for others. And God simply must give us the benefit of the doubt when we do the same for others. It's probably the least we could pray for on the High Holy Days. So much so that we're going to kick off Yom Kippur next week with a big old oops that we call Kol Nidre. Give us the benefit of the doubt. We tried so hard, and all those times that I didn't keep my word, it wasn't because I'm a jerk. It wasn't because I was trying to be greedy or mean. It's because I'm such a good guy. I'm sorry. And I'll do better. I'll do better. And so going into Musaf on the second day Rosh Hashanah, we set a charge within our own heart of Heve et kol adam l'chavzachut, to judge others, which is okay to do, but to judge them meritoriously. And so our charge leading into Hineni is simply to stop and pause. Don't jump to the negative or the malevolent. To consider your response. To stay your anger. To give others the benefit of the doubt. And to do right because you are in control of what happens next. And that is the ultimate form of renewal. Let's rise for the Hineni, leading into the Chatzi Kaddish and the Silent Amidah, page 140.